Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey guys, Amir Reiter here with the Transform Sales Podcast. I got my guest CEO and founder of Salesforce Europe, Rick. What's up, man? Thank you for joining. How are you?
How you doing, Amir? Thank you for having me.
Where are you based? Where are you at the moment? I know you're you're in Europe.
I'm American from San Francisco with an Italian name, based in Madrid, and our coverage is Europe.
How do you like Madrid? So it's a good. I've been there. It's a nice city.
Madrid's great quality of life, beautiful city, nice people, really booming ecosystem in the tech space. So Spain and Madrid are great place to live.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a big fan. So for those listening, or if it's the first time listening on the show, or repeat guests, a lot of times we have people that have tried outsourcing before and they failed to have the results that they want. Then they hire SDRs internally, and then they need to go back and hire an outsource company because they need leads, or companies that are thinking about doing it for the first time. And the goal is just to be super transparent and talk about mistakes that people make, so that if listening, those mistakes can be avoided. Before getting into that, I would love to hear first how you got into the outsourced sales world to begin with.
Sure. Well, Europe is a difficult market to crack for any companies, but our first focus was U.S. inbound companies. So San Francisco tech companies looking to open Europe. We started with enterprise sales, in fact, really more senior people targeting larger enterprises, telco, banks, retail, et cetera. That was about 20 years ago when I first launched the company. Then we kind of expanded into enterprise SaaS, mid-market sales. And then about 10 years ago, where there's a more and more need to be able to put the content in front of people and educate people before or during or after the sales process. And so we launched a really serious lead generation services about 10 years ago. And now lead generation incorporates probably 2/3 of our business. So we're unique in the sense that we do lead generation inside sales and enterprise sales. But we actually came at it from the other direction. We started with enterprise sales and then moving to kind of mid-market. And then just really the market demanded the education had to be out, to be there to drive pipeline for market entry for any kind of technology sales in Europe.
So you've learned a lot and seen a lot, right? I think over the past 50, I think you've been, so Salesforce Europe's been around for 10 years, or is it 15 years or 20 years?
2003, we've founded the company. People always comment on the name.
You've seen it all.
Yeah, we actually launched the same time Salesforce.com came to Europe. So I thought it was a clever name 20 years ago. I didn't think they'd take over the world, but they left us alone. But yeah, sales outsourcing and lead generation has changed quite a bit. It was quite novel in the past when we started. And then, lead generation became more and more accepted. And actually with COVID and the pandemic and the whole work from home, hybrid working teams, et cetera, it's really opened up the world. If people are saying, it doesn't really matter if people are employed, if people are working through employment of record, if people are working through a third-party company, as long as they're delivering to a plan and as part of the team, then we can be successful. So yeah, it's changed quite a bit. And even now, even more so when we're looking into next year, what's going to happen next year? What's the economy going to be like? There's even, I think, more demand for sales outsourcing, lead generation, lowering risk, and focusing on revenue.
Yeah, and I see the email newsletters that you guys send. I think you do a lot of research, getting information about what's going on in the market and sharing that, which is awesome. I'm always checking that out. So anybody listening, Rick has an awesome newsletter doing surveys and getting you back data. So you've been around for a while. You've seen the mistakes. Talk to me. What is the most common mistake? And I always remind that mistake is not like they're not going to buy from you, but mistake as in that they're going to get the wrong agency. They're going to be unhappy. Like, what is this repeating theme that you've seen over time? Because I'm sure it probably hasn't changed much, right?
Sure. Yeah, the number one mistake that we see is poor planning. People or poor planning or resistance to share that planning with third-party partners. So we have probably 9 out of 10 first calls I have with clients. I asked them before the call, send me your plan, send me your objectives, revenue objectives, cost structure. What's the current structure of your existing team? What's not working for you? And people just want to talk about it, which is great. But at some point, you need to put pen to paper. You need to put, what is our plan? What are our objectives? And that's the number one issue is people not thinking about preparing for it If they're going to speak with one agency, or they're going to speak with 10, put a plan together. It could be a page long, it could be 10 pages long. Put it in front of the companies and the people that you're talking to, and then build on that plan. And that shouldn't be a plan that you just have to kind of kick something off, but that should be really your working plan ongoing, because you will learn. Every market is different, and you need to adapt that plan to your learnings in the field.
So are we talking about an execution plan, like a GTM plan, a go-to-market plan, or a procurement plan? Is it more of a plan of like how to compare agencies, or is it more of like, here's the go-to-market plan that they're missing?
It's more go-to-market plan. It is, okay, I'm in the US and I want to crack Europe, or I'm in the UK and I want to expand in the UK. Where do I go? So have you done planning on what markets that you want to go into? Have you done planning on how you want to structure your team? I mean, what revenue do you want from this new market? How many salespeople do you need for that market? How many lead generation people? If a lead generation, that full-time person provides, let's say, 10 leads a month, what's the ratio from a lead to an opportunity to a deal? And is that going to get you to your revenue? So just a structure on maybe some market analysis, what countries you want to go to, what languages you can support, what the structure of that team is going to look like, what's the ideal lead generation team, what's working for you in your home market, so should we look to replicate that in the new market, what the salespeople should look like, what's the profile of the salespeople, profile of the lead generation people. All that can be documented. What are the revenue targets I expect to get out of the new market? How long is that going to take to scale? Because you're not going to get it in 3 months. What are you going to see in Q1, Q2, Q3? And be realistic about that. Sometimes we see that in clients, they have a really realistic view and they say, listen, we want to hit these numbers a year from now. And we're like, great, that's something that we can deliver. Other companies say, well, it's taken us 3 years to get in the home market, but now we're really good and it's going to take 3 months in a new market, which is not the case. New markets will take a year to crack, even if you're a well-established company in your home market.
So for everybody listening, guys, there's a repeating theme here, right? Rick's been doing this for 20 years. Those that have a plan tend to get better results. Those that do not tend to be unhappy. Is that safe to say?
Definitely.
So,
and don't be afraid to put numbers in that plan. Just because you share with me, you're going to spend $20,000 on lead generation doesn't mean you're going to spend it with me, right? But if you say, hey, we've got $20,000 a month as a budget, and with that, we want to deliver $1 million in revenue. Can you get us there? And we can show you, or other teams should be able to show you, how you're going to get it. Or if you build your own, you're probably looking, can I build my own? How long is it going to take me? What's that structure going to look like? And so, you need to have numbers in the plan.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's a big deal, right? I think that there's been, over the last 20 years, an explosion in sales technology, sales tools like Velocity, right? You got data providers. But what there hasn't been is anyone really helping people with a go-to-market plan. And it's almost as if it's like just not sexy, right? So people are like, a plan is not sexy, so let's just ignore it. Let's talk about it. But I always tell people, like, I'm in this big building, but it's like, hey, Rick, if I told you that I built this building by just throwing some cement together, some steel together, would you get in it? Probably fucking not, right? But that's what people do, right? They'll get into buildings that were built on a plan. Their technology platforms you want to sell have a product requirement document and a roadmap. So they know about planning, but then they don't do it with sales and marketing, and then it hurts their results, right? So anybody listening to this, I'm like, I agree with Rick here. I think that not having a plan, and you probably would agree, leads to other problems, right? Like you start shopping with price because you don't have a plan. So all of a sudden you go to natural instincts and like you're negotiating, right? Versus, like you said, being like, here's the goal, here's what we have to get there. What part can you do, right? So just like if you guys are listening to this, I'm like, Rick has probably talked to 400, 500 customers in 20 years.
Yeah, I believe 500 next year.
Yeah. So that's a. Is there any go-to-market plan template or places that people can build their plan? Like, how do you recommend people build a go-to-market plan? Should they speak to you and you build it with them? Yeah.
It's one of those things. I would say most sales managers would do a go-to-market plan maybe 2 to 3 times in their entire career. Let's say a global go-to-market plan. It's not something that you're going to do every day. So if you're doing it 2 or 3 times, not a year, sorry, 2 to 3 times in a lifetime in a career, So our suggestion would be you hire a consultant, you hire somebody who does this every day, day in, day out. They know how to analyze new markets. They first analyze your own business. And one of the core elements that people forget is identifying and then testing and confirming your ideal customer profile in your home market. So who's really working well for your home market and your products. If you have a broad portfolio, which products are working best? What are the ideal customer profile for those customers? Do a good market analysis in a new market and build it around that. So we would say use the third party to do that go-to-market strategy, because it's easy to do it okay. It's hard to do it really well, and that 10%, 20% doing it really well can be the difference between succeeding and not succeeding. We say the same thing about building a partner program or a channel program. Like, it's something that somebody might do 2, 3, 4 times in their career, but you can hire people who do it every day, every week. And so there's.
Would you call that, you know, like we as CloudTask, we're trying to like start defining these things so they have definitions, because it's kind of like a black hole. Would you call that, if we were to put a name on it, like a market validation campaign, like knowing that your campaign's genetics, the actual core of your campaign is market validation, meaning that like you're actually validating channels, validating messages. Yes, you might get meetings. Yes, you'll get sales, because that's a byproduct of successfully messaging the right person at the right time. But is it this concept that like people, without having a validation campaign, they go to a campaign designed for an ROS, return on sales, and then it's like, if you don't have this market validation campaign, you're just missing like the backbone of your whole campaign? Would you call it that term? I
probably wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I would maybe say that you do a go-to-market strategy, go-to-market, whatever you want to call it, document, plan. There's debate. What do you call it? A strategy, or what do you call it? A plan? I think we'd call it a plan. There's strategy and tactics within the plan. And maybe that first year of the plan is the market validation. So you might say, here's the plan. It's a 3-year plan. We're going to go from the US to Europe. We're going to start in UK, France, Germany. That's going to be our validation year. And if we deliver the results in those years, then we will expand to Spain, Nordics, Benelux, or something like that in year 2. So I would say that market validation is maybe part of that plan, or it could be one country, or it could be one vertical, or it could be one product. So maybe an element of that. So we're going to limit to the investors. We're going to validate it. And we're going to limit your investment to 1 million. We expect to get X out of it. And assuming we deliver that, then we'll expand. There's also a product market fit. Your product market fit, which is both the product, but also the sales and marketing tools, the pricing, the positioning, everything that goes around the product. That's also going to be different from the US to Canada to Mexico to the UK to France. Every market is going to be slightly different. And they need to have time to be aware and incorporate those subtleties of the difference as part of that plan, as part of that market validation. Because you might validate one market in, or in one market out in that same process. You might land in the UK and say, wow, we've got 3 competitors in the US, 3 competitors in Europe. They're all already in the UK because that's where they went first. It's too hard to compete. But there's only one in France and Germany and Spain because of language difficulties. So, that my validation is going to be more successful in those markets.
Yeah, even taking it deeper, listening to you, it's almost like people are, I think, a little bit not accepting of the fact that failure is success, right? That you're actually, in a way, when you pay a sales rep, pay a marketing agency, pay an outsourcing sales agency, the data you get back that might be negative is also what you're paying for, right? Because if you find out, like you said, that there's a certain amount of competition in a certain region versus another region, that negative information is really positive in the sense that a company could be blind to that and then build its assets and the go-to-market into the wrong region. And a compounded effects of poor sales performance can cost millions of dollars, right? Yeah. So it's almost as if, like, have you ever had customers that were like, Rick, thank you for finding out that nobody likes our product. If we didn't know this, we would be in that situation. Is that because it's almost like you go to a doctor's office. Yeah, you go to a doctor's office and you get tested. Negative news could be positive, right? You could be like, oh,
you might better find out early than
not positive. Positive that you find it. Yeah, positive that you find it early, but all of a sudden in B2B, it's not like that. Why do you think that is?
Well, just to know where to focus, right? Because a lot of clients don't want to hear bad news, and they see this information as excuses for failure. I wasn't able to sell because there's too much competition. We're too expensive. Okay, that might be. Maybe you're too expensive, or maybe the salesperson is not that good, or maybe the positioning is not that good, or maybe they're not trained well enough to be able to position you well against competition and win. But if you have a product that's very similar to the competition and you're arriving 2 or 3 years late, and the competition has an office of 20 people in a market, and you're just starting with one one salesperson, why are they going to buy from you? So you need to have something super compelling, if you're in that case. And maybe it's simply, hey, let's not do this market. Let's do another market that's going to be easier for us to crack. And then maybe once we get some economies of scale and improve the company and get in a place where actually we can meet the competition, then we come back into that market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What mistakes do people make when working with you, right? Like, 'cause there's obviously purchasing mistakes, right? And sometimes these purchasing mistakes, they'll trickle down to the actual performance. But during the campaign, is there this repeating theme over the last 20 years that like you were like, man, if these buyers did this, and this, they'd get what they want, and I wouldn't be, worried about this account? What kind of behaviors are they doing that are counterintuitive to the results they're looking for?
So, one is we're a third party, but treat us like part of your company. So I guess number one is we use the customer's email. We have the customer on our LinkedIn. We're an extension of their team. Doesn't make a difference if we're employed by them or if we're using an employer of record company or if we're a third party selling on their behalf, we're part of the team. And so the more people treat us like part of the team, we're on QBR sales calls, we go to sales events, the more we're part of the team, the more successful we're going to be. The more our reporting flows up, really integrated as part of the business planning, the more successful we will be. So I think that's one big element. Having time to support an outsourced team, whether it's lead generation internally or lead generation internally, you need sales management support time to be able to support it. You need finance time, you need operations time, you need technology time. All that needs to have capacity. Product development time to be able to manage the team well, take that feedback, act on that feedback. I mean, we have clients that we're waiting 6 months for a legal agreement to go into a new market. And just because their legal was not prepared to take on a new market. So all elements of the business have to be prepared.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? I think a lot of times people will buy from an outsourced sales providers because they've failed to do it internally, right? And a lot of times they fail to do it internally is because they didn't give the support, they didn't give the coaching, they didn't give the tools, they didn't give the feedback, they didn't give the communication, and they have this mindset that by hiring a company, some things will change, and they will. The things that will change are the expertise, been there, done that, the market, knowing the market. But what doesn't change is that teamwork, right? So if you're going to hire an outsourced sales company, you might not have to do a lot of things that you normally would have to do, but that should allow you to focus more time on the communication, on inviting the QBRs and increasing that communication, because it doesn't go away, right? And I keep reminding people listening that like SDRs and AEs are very much like a baton race, right? It's like someone's running with a baton and someone has to catch it, right? And if you don't have that feedback between that baton being that meeting, right, you're going to drop the baton. You drop the baton, you don't close sales. You don't close sales, you're firing somebody, right? Yeah. So that's all awesome information. I love the fact that you've been there for such a long time and you've seen all of this change happen. But one thing has probably remains the same. People need qualified meetings, right? That's the big thing. Do you see people that are neglecting their pipeline and coming too late, where they have a certain goal and then they want to hit that sales goal, but they want to start small, and it's the exact opposite. They should be starting big because of math and then trickling down. Do you see a lot of what are you seeing now in this current marketplace as it's like everybody thinks we're in a recession? Are we in a recession? Are we going to recession? Yeah. What do you see in the macro environment that you want to tell buyers? Like because I see people waiting to the last second, and that's
I mean, we're seeing a bit of everything. We're seeing, I think people are more aware now of the math that you need to build pipeline, that you need to talk to, let's say, 200 unique people to get, let's say, 20, 30 marketing qualified leads out of those 200 unique people that are data built based on your ideal customer profile. So they're not random, but they're very, very focused. If you can then get 10 to 15% of them communicating with you, interacting, so a marketing qualified lead, and then maybe a third of those to a sales qualified lead. So that's kind of 8 to 10 per month. And then 3 to 4 opportunities, and then 1 to 2 deals. That's that.
We were MEQLs for each other for years.
Yeah.
That was we were quietly checking each other's stuff out.
That's how it works. And that sales pipeline can take 3 or 4 months. The sales pipeline can take 3 or 4 months. And so, if things go as planned, that's really Q3 revenue. So it's now December 13th. I mean, if you're not signing or kicking off training of a lead generation team now and getting them ready to kind of hit the market in January, you're not going to be getting the deals. And remember, also Europe in this sense really slows down July and August. So then if you're not building up pipeline and getting opportunities in Q1, Q2, Europe slows down. Your whole 2023 is squeezed into September through December for 4 months to deliver your numbers. And so, you really need to be hitting the market now if you want results next year.
I agree. And you have to hit it higher, actually, because of math. It's not backwards. It's not like do a smaller thing, because if you have a 9-month sales cycle, you're going to have to ramp up opportunities in the beginning to close in the year. Tell me about
it's an easy. Well, just one more thing. It's an easy ROI too. I mean, if the math that I was talking about, even out of 200 people you're targeting to, if you close one, and your let's say your ACV is 10K, and a sales an all inclusive.
An ACV is average contract value for those listening.
Average contract value is, your sales all inclusive, let's say 10K a month. Okay, one person is generating a year's worth of revenue. Well, that client should stick with you for 2 or 3 or 4 years, right? So the math is pretty simple. If you're generating that, he's generating that much in revenue. And so, I think it's important to, manage your burn rate, but at the same time, look at what those leads are going to deliver you in ROI. And invest accordingly, because the numbers are quite clear.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tell me about your best. So I know that you work with a lot of people, right? So like we got this 80-20 rule where we want to talk about the best fit. So when I get you to answer these questions, doesn't mean that you don't service some people, because I know you service a lot of people, but you have to pick one: computer software or service company.
Not services. I mean, services are definitely harder to sell. So I would say
software.
Yeah, software. I mean, a couple of our clients in the hardware space are quite good. I mean, we've got a couple of clients in the hardware space.
Hardware wasn't a choice, Rick.
Software. We have more clients in the software space for sure.
Guys, I'll tell you this: what anyone's listening to is
SaaS. Yeah, I would say mid-market SaaS of kind of, let's say, average contract value for a year, 50,000 to 100,000.
There you go.
So, yeah. So mid-market to low enterprise, I think that's the hottest market.
And anybody listening, remember, like, why we do these podcasts, why we do these calls. Rick works with so many people. He's worked with probably every industry, right? And most agencies are competitive. They're winners. Rick has been competing and winning for 20 years. He wants to win. He wants to win by getting leads. So you can see that the tendency is that they'll work with everybody. This question is not saying that you guys don't work with service companies or hardware companies. Just we want the people that can get a home run.
Service companies generally are harder. Yeah. But there's a lot of interesting platforms that have services that enable those platforms. So that's a value add.
Would you say that your super strength is breaking into Europe? Like, if I'm an American company listening to this, do I want to talk to Salesforce Europe to break into Europe? I'm a software company, $50,000 ACV, looking for a campaign in UK or EMEA. Is that where you guys shine?
We do EMEA. Europe is our core, but Africa is one of our hot markets. Middle East is a hot market right now. So Europe is the core. But yeah, that's what we focus on: is Europe to Europe, US to Europe, or really launching and growing the European market.
Anybody listening? If you are a computer software company and you are 50,000 ACV looking to break into Europe, Rick is your guy. I always knew that. I knew the answer. I'm like, the name is Salesforce Europa, so we kind of know that.
We make it easy.
Any advice for somebody who might not be ready to outsource, might not be ready to hire sales for the answers? They just want to do it themselves, and they want to pick maybe a country that is in Europe that is just a little bit more responsive to outbound sales. Is there a country in particular that has better performance?
Yeah, I would say, if you're doing it your own, if you're an English speaker, the Nordics and the Benelux are probably easier to reach in because they're English friendly. They're smaller markets. Maybe the Nordics I would choose. They're open to new technology. They don't mind somebody calling in from the outside. I would also say, though, it's hard to be successful calling in from the outside. So I would say, find a partner and pay a partner or hire somebody, but put somebody in Europe because there's always competition. And if you're selling in from the abroad, people, they think, have they made the commitment? Do they understand the subtleties? Do they understand GDPR regulations and currency regulations, et cetera? So we work with a lot of companies that have failed doing it from the outside, spent years on it, then have come late to the market. So our suggestion is start small, but put somebody somehow in Europe, and starting in one country or one region is fine.
Makes sense. Rick, what time is it there? 8:00 at night? No, it's early 6, 5.
8:00 at night is football time, so we're not going to
no, you will not.
The last few games of the World Cup.
Anybody listening, if they want to contact you, what is the best way to connect with you to get into your newsletter?
So go to our website, salesforceeurope.com, or my email is Rick Pizzoli. Easier to find a website than spelling my name. So salesforceeurope.com altogether, and send us a note.
Rick, you're the man. I appreciate working with you. I look forward to helping the right customer find you guys through our marketplace when they come through our marketplace, or directly when they just listen to our content. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to the Transform Sales podcast. And this is it for today with our guest, Rick, and Salesforce Europe. Rick, thank you, man.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amir.
Keep doing the surveys and sharing the data. I read it all.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
See you, man.
Take care.